That was one of those clocks that automatically changed, but obviously it's not. So we'll have to get up there. I started to say I'd get a ladder and get up there, but I better not do that. All right, in your bulletin there, you've probably already seen a couple things going on. Got a special announcement here today. Brother Chris will tell us more about that following the evening service, but you can take a look at that and just draw your attentions to that, be here and a part of that. And then in your thing there, you see the teen yard sales coming up here in April. Now, that sounds like a long way away, but it's not. We're well into March now, and so that'll be soon. The next big thing on the calendar, though, of course, is next Sunday. Next Sunday is Missions Emphasis Day. And even though Brother Godfrey will not be here, the pastor that we had thought might be here, another fellow's coming that I've never heard him, but I understand he's really good and been doing missions and things for 30, 40 years. And so we'll look forward to that. But it'll be a great day, and the primary thing about it will be that it's our Faith Promise Sunday. So you that have been giving your faith promise will know that that's a day we try, if God allows and we feel we can, to, by faith, step out and maybe even give a little bit more than we did the previous year. But that's next Sunday. That's our Mission Emphasis Sunday. Big day. Be here. Try to get folks here and all of that. Spring break coming up, but I don't think that means too much to most of us. Palm Sunday at the end of the month, and then Easter just around the corner on April the 4th. So a lot going on, and a lot going on here just even in the next few weeks. All right, let's get started this morning in our hymnal by turning, let's see here. I got page 431, one of my favorite of the old hymns. I love to tell the story. 431, if you need the words, we'll do a couple of verses there. Join me, would you? Warm up that old voice this morning. Here we go. I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and His glory, of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story because I know 'tis true. It satisfies my longing as nothing else can do. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and His love. And then let's take verse 2. I love to tell the story, more wonderful it seems than all our golden fancies, of all our golden dreams. I love to tell the story. It did so much for me, and that is just the reason I tell it now to thee. I love to tell the story. 'Twill be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and His love. Now, you notice Chris looks a little bit different this morning. Some of you think he got a haircut. No, just took a bath. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Chris, come ahead, my friend.
Hey, it's a once a month thing, you know. I'm cheap. What can I say? Good morning, folks. And good morning, computer people. I just like talking to nobody. When I'm by myself, I talk to myself. I don't even answer myself either, so don't worry. Going on the Senior Saints thing, yes, this evening. If you just stick around for about 10 minutes, that's it, 10 minutes. I know I want to go home too. So that's all I ask, about 10 minutes. We'll discuss some things about the future of it, where we're going to go, what we're going to do, and how much food we're going to eat. That's the Baptist part of it right there. Then after that, you guys get a little vacation from me. I know you are excited. You get 2 weeks off. You get next Sunday, we're doing the joint Sunday school class, so we'll have our missionary here. And then on the 21st, we get lovely Mr. Wagner because I will be on vacation. So we're going to find, yeah, I know. Vacation. We were going to go to Mexico, but we had to cancel that trip due to some, we were unable to get Pace in her passport. We were unable to get signatures for that. That's about as far as I'll go on that one. So we were restricted on that one, so we wanted to make sure that if we did something big, we wanted her to go. So we're just going to go up to Daytona Beach for a few days and get away. So, but yeah, so I won't be here on the 21st, but we'll be back on the 28th to resume our prophet lessons. But if you remember where I told you last week to go, 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 5 through 18, we will read. Let you all get there real quick. Not real quick. That's all right. Not in a rush. 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 5 through 18. Anybody get blown away this morning? That wind is something else. We went to City Fest last night, and which was wonderful. I'd say that between 5,000 to 10,000 people. It was wonderful. It was great to see that many people there doing stuff for God. We ran into the Silvermans there. They were there as well, and but it was really good. But that wind started picking up pretty bad, and the kids were getting a little nippy, so we pulled out a little bit early. But it was still a good time. It was free. So tonight, they're going on until about 10 o'clock tonight. So after church and our meeting, you guys can head out there and watch some good music. But so 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 5 through 18. Let's get us started this morning. And Ahab said unto Obadiah, Go into the land, unto all the fountains of water, and to all the brooks. Peradventure we may find grass to save the horses and mules alive, that we loose not all the beasts. So they divided the land in between them to pass throughout it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. And as Obadiah was in the way, behold, Elijah met him. And he knew him, and fell on his face and said, Art thou that my lord Elijah? And he answered him, I am. Go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And he said, What have I sinned that thou wouldest deliver thy servant into the hand of Ahab to slay me? As the Lord thy God liveth, there is no nation or kingdom, whither my Lord hath not sent to seek thee. And when they said, He is not there, he took an oath of the kingdom and nation, that they found these not. And now thou sayest, Go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am gone from thee, that the Spirit of the Lord shall carry thee whither, I know not. And so when I come to tell Ahab, and he cannot find thee, he shall slay me, but I thy servant fear the Lord from my youth. Was it not told, my Lord, what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of the Lord, how I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50 in a cave, and fed them with bread and water? And now thou sayest, Go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he shall slay me. And Elijah said, As the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab, and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he that troubleth Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou, thy father's house, and that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Baalim. So, kind of reminds you of a little bit of a movie here. Anybody familiar with The Wizard of Oz? We had the cowardly lion that needed to find courage, that needed to get that courage to go and about, and the lion was scared of everything. Of course, a lion, fearless lion, was fearful. But anyways, so this lion, in order to get his courage, he had to get this medal inscribed with courage on it. Well, Elijah got his medal, M-E-T-T-L-E, which is, yeah, a little play on words this morning, his medal of courage from God to be able to go face this angry king and his lovely wife, who just seems like a lovely woman when you read about her. But let's follow this journey and see what's going on here. So we got Elijah. He had came into Israel, and he had kind of said, there's going to be a lovely plague here. There's going to be no drought, not a plague, a drought. So there's not going to be any water. Everything was going to die up. Why? Because of their sin. Kind of usually the reason why we see plagues or droughts or anything bad happening in the Bible is mainly because of what? Sin. So he came in and he told about this drought that was going to happen. And what he said specifically was, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. And what's interesting is the fact that it was serious business for there not to be rain, but even more serious for there not to be dew. That means, I think, if God is going to take away the rain, he's going to take away the dew. That means he is not playing around. He is not going to give you a sip of what needs to be done. My goodness, I hear me very loud this morning. Can y'all hear me just fine? Okay, I hear me very loud over here. But anyways, so he kind of went into a little hiding after that. He went to a brook until it dried up, of course. But then he stayed with a widow. And he offered this widow two different, what you could say, unforgettable demonstrations of God's power. Now, first, we know that he gave that her supply of oil and meal to prepare bread wasn't going to dry up. He basically made that last all the way until the famine was over with. And then the second, he raised her son from the dead. I don't know about you, but I would, if I was a doubter at that point in time, I think I'd be a believer at that point. But so we go from that point, he's kind of hiding around, and during this time, we're kind of going to mix all these verses up here. We see that Ahab had been looking for Elijah. He had went around, he had said, where is he? Do you have him here? And obviously there was an oath made between these kingdoms saying, hey, listen, we've not seen him. We don't know where he is. We don't have him in here. We promise you he's not here. So this famine is getting so bad. And we see, I want you to look at this importance here. That in verses 5 and 6, King Ahab is so focused on his mules and his horses than his people. He is focused on going out and finding pasture for these things to live rather than going out and finding some water for his people. That doesn't tell you where his priority was. More than likely, his priority was into keeping his army strong to defend his kingdom, not necessarily the livelihood of his people there. But looking at the situation, he realized this kingdom was a little too big for them to go together, and it may be a waste of resources. So he splits up. He says, Obadiah, you go over here. I'm going to go this way. Now, Obadiah was a guy that feared God since his youth, and he even tells you that. And back in the beginning of the chapter there, it describes him as someone who feared the Lord greatly. So Obadiah is in this situation where he is a servant of God, he loves God, he fears God, but he's under a rule of someone who despises God, and let alone his wife. So we got a whole, basically, family of rulers here that despise God. Has anybody ever been in a work environment or a friendship environment anyways where you had to be careful how you lived your Christian life or said that? Now, there wasn't a doubt that they really knew that he was a Christian. He wasn't really shy about it, but he had to be careful. He had to be cautious. And I look at, in today's world, you have to be careful. You can literally, I would say, depending on where you're at, you could probably just stand up and say, I'm a Christian, and get in trouble to some extent. They would say, well, you're not allowed to say your belief. Well, I didn't say nothing, but I'm a Christian. But then we go automatically, they're judging you based on all that. Anyways. But so they split up. One takes the north, one takes the south. Well, Obadiah's out doing his thing, and then he sees Elijah. He's like, oh, my goodness. Is that you? You know, you kind of got to wonder, you know, hey, we've not seen you. Nobody's seen you, and then here you are, out of nowhere. Now, Elijah kind of, because you don't know his heart at the moment, he kind of takes a little dig at him to see where he's at. If you look at verse 8, he said, and he answered him, I am, go tell thy Lord, behold, Elijah's here. So we see that he's confirming who he is, but he's kind of taking a little dig I guess you could say, testing his, what's that word when you're with somebody? Commitment to God. By kind of saying, tell your Lord, I'm here. But then Obadiah kind of comes back by talking to Elijah, and he said, what have I sinned that thou wouldst deliver me, thy servant, into thy hand? So Obadiah responds back, letting him know, hey, listen, no. I'm from God here. And listen, I have not sinned. He's wondering, what have I done? And then we know that he said, look at what I've done. I took these servants and hid them from Jezebel. I did what I was supposed to do. Why are you here? And why do you want me to tell this king that you're here? You know what that's going to happen to me. Because, see, Elijah didn't want to come with him. He wanted him to leave. So we know what the possible ramifications could be. Imagine what's going through Obadiah said. This king who's vicious, very nasty king, hates God, been looking for Elijah. And then all of a sudden, Obadiah rides back and says, hey, listen, I found Elijah. Well, where is he? Oh, I left him. That's a scary situation to be in. What did it take to be able to do that? Courage. Took a lot of courage for Obadiah, and not just even courage, but I'm going to use the word that's probably more suitable for this, but faith. It took a lot of faith in God for Obadiah to be able to leave Elijah right there when he asked and go to this ruthless king and say, hey, I found him, but he's coming. Takes a lot of faith, but we see, and I want to let it be known that faith pays off, whether it be one way or another, but not every instance is like this. There are people that have died for their faith. God has a plan for every situation, but you got to go through it to test the faith, and maybe the plan is for you to be home sooner. So, but anyways, in this case, we see that, blah, 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 where I'm at. I jumped way far ahead of myself here. All right, yeah, so he's worried that he's going to slay him, so he goes and he does it anyways. But Elijah's word to him, and he says, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself in him for this day. So even though he had that promise from Elijah, it was still scary. You can imagine. So 16, so Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. So, shockingly enough, King Ahab was like, all right, let's go do this. Verse 17, and it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, and Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? Now, let's take a moment to look at this verse. There is a problem in Israel. What did we just discuss was happening? It's a famine, drought, no water, no dew. Why was there a famine? Because of sin. So right here we see King Ahab already passing the buck onto Elijah. It's you're our problem because you said this was going to happen. See, what's the biggest problem with sin anymore? Nobody wants to take responsibility. Something bad happens in their life. Who's the first person they blame? God. Well, or Wayne. Wayne's usually the cause. Walter's already pointing. But most people blame God. Why? Because God said, if you do this, something's going to happen. It's not God's fault. It's like telling the people that smoke all their lives that they're going to get lung cancer and them getting upset that they got lung cancer. Yeah, see, Wayne again. You have the warning. You've been told this is going to happen. So it's only your fault that it happened. It'd be like me going and suing Popeyes because I'm fat. I know what happens when you eat fried chicken all the time. It does not look good on your waistline. But I still do it anyway. So I, therefore, am suffering the what? Consequences. So Israel is suffering the consequences of their sin, but King Ahab does not want to own up to it. He wants to pass that buck on to someone else. And in this case, Elijah, because he just told them the truth. He told them what was going to happen because of why they did it. And he tells them, Right here, he says, and he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, and that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and that hast followed Baalim. Now, what that means is the Baal religion, when you put that word there, it's multiple. That means now we're not just worshiping one God, we're worshiping little g's, we're worshiping several. So that's basically the plural version of that. So he didn't back down. What in the world would you be thinking if you were Elijah? And you got, you're meeting this king who's been searching for you, wanted to kill you, to stand up and to say, listen, I didn't cause the trouble. You did. You worshiped a false god. You did not worship the true God. That's why we're seeing this mess. What we look at today is we're in a position here with Elijah that he could have taken his human form and just continued to hide. He could have taken fear and not stood up to the king, and it very well could have cost his life. And in any situation, it still could today for any Christian standing up. Still spared at this moment because God protected him. See, that time that he was with the widow, he needed to really get that connection with God, to get that courage, take that time out, get that. I don't think he was ready beforehand to step into this situation. God ever put you in a position that he's like, okay, this is kind of what we need to do, but you got to be ready. It's not good to take a warrior fresh out of boot camp and put them on the battlefield in a hard position, is it? What's it take? It takes training. It takes dedication. You want to make sure these warriors are the best that we got, that they can handle mentally and physically the situation at hand. And that's what we see during that time that Elijah was kind of disappeared. And, that was Obadiah's fear. He was like, listen, you just disappeared off the map, Are you going to do this again? Because God could just pick you up and take you somewhere. But he had assurance from Elijah. What are some ways that, maybe in doubt, because at that point in time, there was some doubt from Obadiah that Elijah was there. He said, you're sending me away. What have I done? But you could still be taken away. As Christians, we face doubt in many ways. What are some ways that we can help reassure each other in a time of doubt, when we're maybe doubting God or doubting a promise that God has put in our life? Anybody got some ideas? Prayer? To me, the best thing is the Bible has an answer for everything. Basically, every situation you're in, you go to the back of the Bible, it's got a nice little index of whatever, and Google really works too. Go in the Bible, find instances of a situation where maybe somebody else has experienced this, and show God's promise. Because what's interesting and what I love about the Bible that has never let me down, God just doesn't tell you that he's going to do this. There's always an example of a situation where he has followed through. See, it's so perfect in detail that he just don't tell you, but he shows you. He shows you where it happened. He shows you how it happened. And he shows you the consequences of what happened when you didn't do what you're supposed to do. So I think that's a good idea. And what do you think is a good way for a Christian to respond? Because especially now, this is a very important question for now. And I've seen people, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but when we're condemned or we're mocked, laughed at for following God's word, what do you think is an appropriate response? Nobody knows. Well, let's talk about it. Let's get some answers out here. I think Elijah had probably one of the best things, and I've learned this throughout my years, and probably not the best example to give, but I think it's a good example. When dealing with situations with my ex-wife, who is a non-believer, who is totally on the other side of the situation, at first, as inexperienced and just angry, I would respond back in the situation maybe a little bit louder, maybe on impulse. and just to try to get back and say, no, this is really what happened. This is, And I see so many Christians jumping into the boat to say, you're wrong. This is the way to do it. No, And that never resonates well with people. Other than a couple instances where Jesus turned over some tables, Jesus handled situations very calmly. And I've learned, dealing with her over the years, the best way to get an adequate response and to get a true open heart to what I'm discussing is to talk to them exactly like I'm talking to you right now. You don't raise your voice. You go at it calmly, and you go it into a voice that what God would more than likely talk to you as. Because I don't imagine Elijah here saying, I ain't troubled Israel, but you, listen, you and thy father's house. No. He was like, I have not troubled Israel. But you and your father's house, you've done it. Calm, cool, and collective. That's the way to respond. Because Jesus overall was calm, cool, and collective, right? He had moments, and we're going to have moments too, but as a Christian, it's hard. It's really hard, especially when people look at you saying, you're wrong. Or the favorite word, you're a bigot. You're homophobic. You're bless you. You're all these other words under the sun. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes no words are better than none. But just, I love you. I love you. Sometimes at that moment, there's nothing to say. I'd rather say nothing than say something without God's interpretation in my heart. Because if God didn't put it in my heart to say it, I've learned it's not worth it to say it. I'd rather Him have the word, Him have the opportunity, because if I come back in a wrong way, I could possibly do damage to somebody that could have eventually found God if I would have done it the way He did. But courage is something as a Christian that we should always, I say, seek out. If we don't have it, God says ask. Pray for it. Pray, what can I do, God, to be able to step up to the plate and be more like this great prophet Elijah who stood up in front of a king, risked his life to tell him he was wrong. I didn't make this mess. You did. So it's important to stand up. And, like I said, I was telling a few of y'all, well, I actually just said at the beginning, that we went to City Fest. And even today, in today's society, it takes a lot of courage to put on a big event, especially with COVID-related stuff, to put on this big event out. It was outdoors. They had encouragements for COVID protocols and stuff like that, but it takes courage in today's society and with everything going on to even put on an event like that. And, we're blessed to live in Brevard County, which is, you go to those surrounding counties, especially more in the central Florida, it's a whole different world. I did learn one other county that's pretty chill is Indian River County. They're pretty chill down there. I like that too. They're kind of like us, so I like it down there. But anyway, so it takes a lot of courage, and I think as Christians we need to make sure that if we see these events happening or things going on in the world, step up, support them. Write these people a message of hey, thank you for doing that, or not talking about just City Fest, but anything. If we see somebody doing something for God, the reason why the left and all these other people have such a voice, why? It's because they have courage. They have courage. They are standing up. They're not afraid. They don't care what you have to say, and they have numbers. I like that meme that I see on Facebook a lot. You got the guy with the whip. Everybody bowing down. You got one person stands up, he's still whipping. 3 or 4 people stand up, he's still whipping. Everybody stands up, he bows down. If the Christian church was, like we've talked about before, united, and we all actually stood up. So like an example, and we're seeing this in Brevard County, this whole stuff in the classrooms with the transgender kids that came down now. They've expanded it more now for restrooms and stuff like that in Brevard County. There's a lot of backlash over that. Parents have written in, and I am one of them. Shockingly enough, the superintendent wrote me back. So the fact that he's taken the time out of that is encouraging, but But make sure when we do that, we're writing these emails, we're letting them know how we feel about these things. Because if we don't do that and let them know that we're angry, it's the same game that they play. We got to let them know that we're angry, but we have to do it out of love. You can't be the guy that says, I don't want them gays around me. No. You know, like when I wrote it that, you know, about my daughter being in school and, you know, what are we looking at? I actually put in a part there, and this is where you got to show compassion, that I think instead of focusing on getting these children their own, you know, they're sharing the bathrooms with kids, we need to give these children the actual therapeutic help that is really needed. And get this stuff, spend the money, spend the efforts on giving them that type of help more than putting them in a bathroom with these other students. That needs to not be our focus. And so I think it's putting that in those ways, saying that we do care. We want people to have help. We want people to do, but not bashing, because that's where some of these other people that just get out there and do. You could be against, but you could still show compassion. Yes, Ms. Cheryl. It was very, because I will, let me actually pull it up here. Yeah, well, what they said, I read an article this morning, and they said, I think I just deleted it, is they said that that wasn't a thing. Their whole thing now is that they're going by the state rules. So now they have to just abide by the state rules. And I'm going to get you guys the actual email back. I had deleted it. Well, they said that they have to follow the state guidelines, according to them. But I know that every, you know, I haven't looked into the legalities of all that, but I think they're just putting words down just to make everybody feel kind of happy. You know what I mean? So, but I think it's important that when we see stuff like this come up, that we are able to jump in and say, hey, listen, we disagree, but do it with compassion, do it with love. And my goodness, I get so many emails. So when I deleted this, it really, and what's interesting is he responded back. Well, yes, but my daughter's school hasn't had any problems. So I don't want to jump in and cause anything with you know, her school if there's not been a problem there yet. I wanted to take it to the top. But anyways, his response was more like, we care about all children, especially with your daughter, and you know, we want everybody to, we want to work our best to try to appease everybody. And if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to call me and email me. And so, you know, he was open at least. But it's stuff like that I encourage everybody to do. I mean, not saying go email him tomorrow, but if we see cases like this, we have to stand up. We have to let them know, but we cannot be mean about it. We can't say the wrong things, because do you want to just fall in their bucket? The key thing, and what I've learned over the years, is when you're going out and when you're trying to, fighting evil is hard. But it's one of those cases where you have to use their own words against them, use their own techniques against them. And what the hard thing about this group of people is their techniques change every day, because when you don't have a solid foundation, when you don't have a, okay, this is where we're starting from, then it's easy to manipulate it, but it never makes any sense. So you have to fight craziness with craziness sometimes, but you got to fight it with a respectful form. I know that sounds weird, but that's it's just the way it is. And if I come up with a good example anytime soon, I'll let you know. But it's, you just got to use the care and concern type mentality, because that's where they're at. They're with this care and concern. We want everybody to have equal rights. So it's like, well, I think, you know, you could say on the Christianity worldview. This is a funny thing. I told my wife yesterday, this is a joke, and sorry if there's anybody that is offended by it. I said, you know, everybody that is, you know, saying that people who are same-sex attracted, that they're born that way or whatever. I said, well, should we not have Calvinists? We should have Calvinists should be able to practice their religion open, because according to them, they are born into God's grace. I don't know if you know anything about Calvinism. They believe that everybody is ordained to go to heaven specifically, and you're basically, by the time you're born, not just, you don't have free will. You're basically, God says, nope, not you, but you. You're going to be in God's grace. You're going to be. So I was like, well, if they're born that way, well, then Calvinists should be able to be. That was my religious joke, and it's horrible. But I just thought it was funny, one way to fight back. But no, it's you just got to fight back with love, though. You do have to. I still have issues. I'm still trying to find the perfect way around the love versus acceptance type issues. Because that's hard. People automatically want to say, well, you love this person, but then you don't accept for who they are because they're born that way. Well, there's really no argument that you can make with them back because they are so torn in it. At the end of the day, you've got to just state your opinion and say, well, you're obviously not going to see from this point of view, so I think it's best for both ends not to have this conversation, but just understand that I do love you, or whatever, because what a lot of people don't realize is I have a sister that's openly gay. Do I support it? Have I had the conversation with her? Oh, yeah. I'm like, listen, I don't support your lifestyle. If you ever come to me and say I'm getting married, I'm not coming to the wedding, but I'm going to love you. I'm not going to tell you. She still comes over to my house for holidays. She still does. I'm still there for her because that's what we are called to do. Do I accept it? Do I believe in it? No. But you have to show compassion. You have to show it how God, because let me tell you something. Could God have just given up on you and kicked you out? No. And there's so many things that we're going so wrong with Christianity that's created, honestly, this issue. One end of Christianity has bottom in, said, we'll bring you in as you are and just let you stay that way. No, that's not it. And then the other end has gone crazy and said, we hate you, you're just going to die and burn in hell. Well, that is a true answer, that you will die and burn in hell if you don't change. But before that, we love you because God loved you, but we don't love your sin. You're not going to participate in a church activity while you're doing that, just like we wouldn't let somebody who's openly, currently sinning participate, right? If we know somebody was out there committing adultery right now, or we knew somebody was probably a stripper, we wouldn't say, you're going to lead the singing on Sunday morning, if we know that. Yeah, but we want those people to come to church, and we want those people to feel loved and not accepted, but we want them to feel loved, because sin is not accepted. But we can't tell people that, hey, listen, you can't come here because you're a sinner. No. You got to change that sin, but that's going to be God that's going to have to do that, and that's going to be up to you to do it. So that's my take on that today. But anyways, that's it. Anybody got any questions, comments, concerns? No? All right. Let's say some prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather this morning, and we pray that as Christians we can have the courage to stand up to those out there who are committing this crazy, sinful world and making it worse, making it harder for us to show that love and appreciation. So I pray, God, that we not just have the courage, that we have the compassion, that you have the drive forward to reach these people and show them your true mercy and your true love. We pray for the message this morning that you could just speak through Pastor Chad what you want the world to hear, God. If there's one that's lost, that they could come to know you this morning. We love you and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thank you, folks, for my Sunday school / political lesson.